You didn't start this game, but somehow you're paying for it. Trump is campaigning, Xi is expanding, Putin is bombing, and somehow your grocery bill just exploded. Gas is nearly $7. Eggs cost more than steak used to. You're working harder but saving less. Voting harder but seeing no change. And while global leaders play chess with borders, power, and ideology, you're just trying to pay rent on time. This isn't about politics. This is about people. People like you who did everything right but are still falling behind. Who budget carefully but can't keep up. Who follow the news but feel more confused than informed. In this video, we're not just going to talk about three powerful men, Trump, Xi, and Putin. We're going to talk about how their decisions, their ambitions, their games quietly shape your everyday life. From the gas station to the checkout line, from your paycheck to your peace of mind. We'll break down the power moves each of them is making on the global stage and what it means for your wallet, your mental health, and your children's future. We'll explore how invisible wars, fought with tariffs, tweets, tanks, and treaties, are draining the American middle class more than any bullet ever could. We'll look at the emotional toll, the illusion of control, and why so many hardworking Americans feel stuck in a game they never signed up to play. And by the end, we'll ask a question that might just change how you see it all. What if this has nothing to do with red or blue, and everything to do with green? Let's start. Here's something to think about. What do a campaign rally in Florida, a military drill near Taiwan, and a pipeline explosion in Ukraine all have in common? At first glance, nothing. But when you zoom out, they're all moves on the same chessboard. And the players? Trump, Xi, Putin. Let's start with Trump. He's not just running for president again. He's running a strategy. He's promising to revive the American economy, cut taxes, and bring jobs back. But behind the slogans are sharp edges, threats to close the border, tariffs on imports, and promises to take a hard line on global competitors, especially China. For some Americans, that sounds like strength. For others, it feels like deja vu, like the economy is being used as a political weapon all over again. Either way, when Trump moves, the world reacts. Now shift focus to Xi Jinping. While Americans argue over gas prices, Xi is playing a long game. He's expanding China's Belt and Road Initiative, connecting continents with loans, ports, and infrastructure. At the same time, he's tightening control over supply chains, limiting exports of key materials, and applying military pressure near Taiwan. The message is clear. China is rising, and it wants the world, including the UN, to know it. The average American may never feel the tremors of a policy in Beijing until they see it on the price tag of their next phone or laptop, or when shelves go empty again because one critical component couldn't get through. Then there's Putin, still entrenched in the Ukraine conflict, but make no mistake, this isn't just about borders, it's about leverage. Russia's control over oil and gas has rattled markets, inflated prices, and left Europe and the US scrambling to fill the gaps. And when energy becomes a weapon, it's not just nations that bleed, it's families at the pump, workers heating their homes, truckers hauling food across states. Here's where it all connects. These aren't isolated events. They're a web. Each leader is making moves that, intentionally or not, ripple into the daily lives of people across the globe, including here, in your town, on your street. And that's the hardest part. None of us voted for Xi or Putin. Some of us didn't vote for Trump. But all of us are living with the consequences of their games. It's not just policy, it's pressure. And while they trade threats and influence, it's your grocery list that's shrinking, your savings that are thinning, your future that feels just a little less certain. So if you've ever felt like something bigger is moving behind the scenes, you're right, because the board is global, but the price, that's very, very local. Let's take a closer look at what that price actually looks like in everyday American life. You don't hear the bombs, you don't see the tanks, but you feel this war. Every time you fill up your tank, swipe your card at the grocery store, or glance at your paycheck and wonder, where did it all go? This isn't a war fought on battlefields. It's a war fought in silence. And you're in the crossfire. Let's talk about gas. Remember when $3 a gallon felt like a ripoff? Now in some states, it's creeping past $6. The conflict in Ukraine disrupted oil supply across Europe. Sanctions on Russia? Necessary, yes. But they squeezed an already fragile global energy system. And when oil prices spike in Europe, they spike here too. Because the global market doesn't care where you live. It only cares who's buying and selling. And you're the one who still needs to get to work, drop the kids off, or drive 3 towns over to visit your aging parents. There's no off-ramp from reality. Then there's the grocery bill. It used to be that a hunt filled your cart. Now it barely covers the essentials. Milk, eggs, bread, and a few things for dinner. Why? Well, because supply chains are still healing from COVID, and now they're cracking under trade tensions. China restricts key exports. Tariffs come and go like headlines. Shipping costs have ballooned, and in the middle of all that chaos sits the American consumer, doing mental math in the cereal aisle. But the most dangerous cost of this invisible war isn't on a receipt. It's the one we carry inside, the anxiety, the stress, the gnawing feeling that no matter how hard you work, you're still falling behind. I've felt it too. That quiet panic when the car makes a strange noise and you're not sure if you can afford to fix it. The tension at the dinner table when your partner says, "We need to cut back again." It's not just frustrating, it's exhausting. And it's not your fault. But here's the hardest pill to swallow. For many middle-class Americans, there's no cushion. You make too much for assistance, but not enough to breathe. You play by the rules, but the game keeps changing. And while politicians argue over whose fault it is, the rent is due, and your credit card is maxed out. This war has no uniforms, no flags, no borders, just quiet casualties. Like you, me, and the neighbors who never complain, but always seem a little more tired than last week. And this is just one front of the battle. Next, let's look at how these global power moves are reshaping our daily lives, and what's silently being sacrificed to keep the game going. They say power is a game played at the top, but what happens when the people at the bottom start losing, and no one even notices? Let's talk about where your money is really going. While politicians argue on TV and shake hands at summits, America's domestic budget quietly shifts in the background. More money is going to defense. Less is going to things you actually rely on. Things like healthcare, education, and affordable housing. It's subtle, but over time it adds up. You notice it when you have to wait 2 months to see a specialist because your local clinic lost funding. You notice it when your kid's school cuts music or art. You notice it when your rent goes up $300 and you're told to be grateful you even found a place. These aren't abstract policy decisions. They're real-life consequences. And here's what makes it even harder. You're earning the same, but everything around you is more expensive. Inflation isn't just some chart economists debate over. It's your grocery bill, your heating bill, the fact that you now think twice before buying lunch out, even if you just need a break. It's this constant erosion of value, of effort, of stability. And then there's the fatigue, the kind that doesn't go away after a good night's sleep. I've talked to friends, smart, capable people, who've stopped reading the news altogether. Not because they don't care, but because they've hit a wall. The world feels overwhelming. And when every headline is a crisis, the easiest thing to do is shut down. And let's be honest, sometimes it feels like you're doing everything right and nothing gets better. You vote, but nothing changes. You save, but prices rise. You care, but no one listens. It's not apathy, it's exhaustion. And if you've ever felt that, you're not alone. Because this isn't just happening to one person or one group. It's a shared silence, a quiet disconnect spreading across working Americans. And the irony? The louder the power plays get, the quieter the people become. That's not democracy, that's despair. But before we let that feeling take over, let's dig deeper. Because what's even more dangerous than losing control is believing we ever had it. And in the next part, we'll talk about the illusion of control, why the system tells you it's your fault, while it quietly shifts the board behind your back. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right and still falling behind? You vote, you budget, you work overtime, you follow the rules, and yet it still feels like nothing changes. That's not just in your head, because while we're told that change starts with us, with a ballot, with a spreadsheet, with a little more patience, the truth is, much of what shapes our daily lives is completely out of our hands. Let's call it what it is, the illusion of control. We're told inflation is a natural cycle, that it'll cool down soon. But did you choose it? You didn't cause the war in Ukraine. You didn't negotiate trade policy with China. You didn't decide to send billions overseas while your local hospital closes an entire wing. But somehow, you're the one stretching your paycheck to cover $7 gas. You're the one counting how many meals are left in the fridge before payday. You're the one telling your kid, we'll get it next month, when they ask for something simple. That's the part no one says out loud. This system tells you it's your fault while it keeps moving the goalposts. And the most painful part? That powerless feeling, the one where you realize you don't have a say in the forces that define your life. That's by design. It's hard to stay hopeful when your choices feel like illusions. I remember standing at the gas pump not long ago, watching the numbers roll faster than I could blink. And I just stood there thinking, is this what normal feels like now? It's not just about money, it's about dignity, about the exhaustion of always adjusting, always tightening, always being the one to absorb the blow. And while those in power debate policy in distant rooms, families are rationing diapers. Elderly folks are skipping medications to afford groceries. Middle-class parents are choosing between rent and birthday cakes. Let that sink in. Choosing between rent and a birthday cake. We've been told that if we just make better choices, everything will work out. But how do you choose your way out of a system you never built? Still, we keep going because that's what we do, but just surviving shouldn't be the goal. There has to be more than this. So where do we go from here? In the final part of this video, let's talk about what we can do. Not just to respond, but to reclaim a little clarity, a little community, and maybe even a little control. This isn't about left or right. It's not about red hats or blue signs. This is about you, your family, your future, your peace of mind. We've just walked through a global chessboard where Trump, Xi, and Putin make their moves, where power is negotiated across oceans, where decisions are made behind closed doors. And yet, somehow, millions of Americans are the ones paying the price. In your gas tank, at the grocery store, on your credit card, and in the quiet, exhausted corners of your mind. You didn't choose these wars. You didn't create this economy. But here you are, stretching every dollar, hoping next month gets easier. So ask yourself, are you okay with paying for decisions you never made? Because pretending this doesn't affect us, that's no longer an option. We need to name what's happening. We need to talk about it. We need to stop blaming ourselves for a system we didn't design and start reclaiming the power we do have. The power to think, to question, to speak, and to share. If this video made you pause, even for a moment, don't scroll past. Leave a comment. Tell me how this hit home for you. Tell me what part felt personal. Because I promise you, if it felt real to you, it's real to millions of others too. And if you believe others need to hear this, then share this video. Let's make this truth louder than the noise. This isn't about politics. This is about people. This is about you, and your voice matters. Thanks for watching.